I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started with our main work of the evening, Dr. Morse has a Distinguished Service Award to present.
Thank you, everyone, for giving up a Friday night to be here. I have the pleasure of recognizing Armida Geiger as our 2014 Distinguished Service Award recipient. Armida can be considered an A-plus volunteer. She is an active PTO member who is always willing to go the extra step to lend a hand. She has actively participated in several fundraising activities for the schools, and the money raised went a long way in helping our students, staff, and parents of Oyster River. She has unselfishly dedicated her time throughout the district for many years, and always with a great sense of humor. She has been described as a human dynamo that is incredibly talented at promoting and advertising whatever event she has taken on. Her volunteering takes her to too many different schools in the district, whether she is helping out on the front office or helping in the classroom. She could be sitting in the library reading to a group of students, or maybe just one or two. She has been caught working outdoors helping with playground repair projects. We know that she is a supporter of the arts, helping out at the school musicals, as well as the high school drama club. For the past 2 years, she took on the role of organizing the publicity for our spring musical. She has absolutely no problem calling people and asking them for their help, be it selling tickets, ushering, and advertising in our program, or selling concessions. She does it all. She is the definition of a can-do person. The drama club can't thank Armida enough for the workhorse she is, the positive energy she pours into the high school drama program, and she does it all for Oyster River kids. Principal Jay Richard sums it up nicely when he said that he needed parent support to run an effective school and create new programs, and one of the first parents to step up was Armida. Armida was very helpful in organizing after-school functions, and she started the Oyster River Middle School Chess Club, which continues to thrive each year with dozens of players matching wits against each other. Last year, an Oyster River Middle School student was named the state chess champion. I always valued her insight. Thank you, Armida, for helping to get it all started. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that the district awards Armida the Distinguished Service Award. Thank you, Armida.
If I could take just one more minute before we start to say a few words about Shirley Thompson, who, as we all know, recently passed away. First, we'd like to, from her family, thank the town, the school district, the teachers, the staff, the superintendent, the bus drivers, everybody, the maintenance people. Certainly Shirley loved the Oyster River School District, and I think it loved her back. Just a few more thanks to the Chief Landry and Captain Brown from the fire department, Chief Kirks from the Durham Police Department for the honor guard they provided her, Town Manager Todd Selleck for all the help he gave us. A few other things, we'd like to thank Three Chimneys, who just hosted Shirley's 80th birthday party last week, and it was well attended. And I'd also like to thank Kenny and Tina from Young's, who hosted us today for the function that we had over there. She was proud of this town, proud of the district, proud of just being from the town of Durham. Our family was proud and lucky to live here with her, and Durham is a wonderful, great place to live. The one thing I want to end with is that Shirley was so proud of being from Durham, being a product of the Durham School District herself. And she was most proud, if you knew her, of her children and grandchildren, that they too were products of the Oyster River School District. Kim went to the Oyster River School District, my wife, graduated from UNH. Our first daughter, Jessie, all the way through the schools here, went to Brandeis. Our middle daughter, Lindsay, all the way through the schools here. She went to Suffolk. and our son Rick, all the way through the schools here, and went to Roger Williams and then on to his master's at Southern New Hampshire. So I got through it. I really want to thank everybody in the district, everybody in the town, and we'll get on with the work of the evening. Thank you. I now need to read the MS-26. I certify that on January 24th, 2014, I posted the MS-26, the default budget, and the written warrant attested by the school board of the Oyster River Cooperative School District in the town of Durham, excuse me, at the Oyster River High School, place of the meeting, in the town of Lee at the Massway School, in the town of Madbury at the Moharriman School. It is signed by Wendy DeFuscio from, I mess her name up every year, I apologize, and duly noted and notarized. As a point of reference, school board member Tom Newkirk will not be able to be here tonight because of the change of dates, and Ed Charlet is going to be running a little late, but hopes to get here very quickly. We'll start our work of the evening on the warrant. As you know, we're here to make any amendments to the warrant before it is voted on, so I will read the beginning of the warrant to you. Oyster River Cooperative School District, State of New Hampshire, 2014 school warrant to the inhabitants of the Oyster River Cooperative School District of Durham, Lee, and Madbury, qualified to vote upon district affairs. You are hereby notified to meet at the Oyster River High School in said district on the 7th day of February 2014 at 7 a.m. in the evening for session 1 of the annual school district meeting for discussions of Articles 3 through 7 and for any amendments thereto. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended, and no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article at session 1. Official ballot voting for school district officers, Articles 1 and 2, and on Articles 3 through 7 will occur at the town polling locations on Tuesday, March 11, 2014. Those places are the town of Durham, Oyster River High School, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Town of Lee, Lee Safety Complex, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Town of Madbury, Madbury Town Hall, 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Warrant Article 1 is to choose a moderator for the upcoming year. Warrant Article 2 is to choose 2 at-large school members for the ensuing 3 years. We will move to discuss Warrant Article 3. It will be presented. It would be moved and seconded. Then there would be discussion on that. I would ask if anybody has discussion on that to come down to the podium down front. Please identify yourself for the secretary so we know who you are and where you reside. And hopefully we won't get too repetitive, but we'll move through the evening as quickly as we can. So we have Warrant Article 3 to be presented by Al Holland.
Put that a little lower. All right, I'll start off by reading the warrant. Shall the district vote to approve within the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 273-A:3 the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Oyster River Teachers Guild and the Oyster River School Board, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels: 2014-2015, $319,827. 2015-16, $441,969. 2016-2017, $429,169. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $319,827 for the 2014-2015 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increases in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels. The school board recommends this appropriation, majority vote required. Should I motion first?
So you can explain it, then we'll take a motion at the end of it.
Okay.
You're still presenting it?
All right, so I'll go through what all that technical language, what does it actually mean? And as the slide starts out, who exactly is this contract for and who is the Teachers Guild? It covers the teachers, it covers the guidance counselors, it covers the librarians, the nurses, and some other specialists at the school. It's a 3-year contract. It starts in 2014-2015 school year. It goes to 2015-2016 school year, as well as finishing off in the 2016-2017 school year. In terms of salary increases, year 1, it's a 2% raise with $500 for the top step only. Year 2, it's a 1.5% increase with a $250 increase for the top step only. In year 3, it's a 1.5% increase and $250 for the top step only. Okay, anyone who's followed our contracts the last few years has probably noticed, and it's a national thing, that we've really been trying to control our healthcare costs. And so one of the major changes in this contract was moving from a very expensive plan called the Comp 100 plan to a less expensive but very good plan, the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. And to put that in perspective, what does that really mean? The district's portion that we were paying of the Comp 100 plan, when you transfer that over to the current Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, the district would have been paying 99% of that policy. The teachers have made a concession. In year 1, the district would pay 89% of the policy. In year 2, it would be 88%. In year 3, it would be 87%. The change from the Comp 100 to the Blue Cross Blue Shield is less expensive because primarily there's an increase in co-pays for pharmacy and for office visits. The result of this was a $295,000 savings in the teacher's contract. I think that's it.
You can make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve warrant Article 3 as written.
Is there a second? There is a second. Kenny Rockman? Yes. Okay, thank you. Warrant Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on warrant Article 3? There being no discussion on warrant Article 3 that covers the collective bargaining agreement, everybody that's in agreement with warrant Article 3 as written, please signify by raising your card. Those opposed, it's accepted as written. Warrant Article 4 will be presented by Ann Lane.
Warrant Article 4 reads, shall the district raise and appropriate as a supplemental appropriation in the current fiscal year the amount of $1 for the purposes of constructing an addition and renovations to add a cafeteria to the Meharmet School. The cost of the addition is estimated at $500,000, with that amount to come from the unexpended appropriations in the district's 2013-2014 budget as a result of an insurance premium holiday from the local government center on the district's health insurance premiums. The school board recommends this appropriation. A majority vote is required.
Can you explain it now, please?
The explanation. Adding the addition to the Meharmet cafeteria would provide a safer gym and a safer environment for our children. Safety eliminates tables lining the walls. Anyone who's been in Meharmet's cafeteria/gym during gym knows what I'm talking about. It would provide academic equity between Mastway and Meharmet, create more time for physical education, and eliminate interruption of current instruction time. The proposed 20-foot addition on the back of the Meharmet School provides the space to create a dedicated cafeteria separate from the gymnasium. The section of the current gym directly in front of the stage will be partitioned from the gym by a folding wall. ORCSD has received $688,000 from a lawsuit filed against the local government center, of which approximately $188,000 belongs to the employees and $500,000 belongs to ORCSD. We propose these funds be used to construct the cafeteria. No new taxes will be needed to do this project. In your folders, you'll see an insert which shows the current layout of the Meharmet Cafeteria Gymnasium and the Mastway Cafeteria Gymnasium and Music Room, so that you have a blueprint to understand this addition. This is a slide which illustrates the addition on the end of the Meharmet Cafeteria/gym.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to accept Article 4 as written.
It's a motion, and there's a second by Al Howland? Yes. Okay. Hold on. You've heard the explanation of warrant Article 4. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir. State your name.
David Taylor from Durham. Watching the school board discussions on the warrant, it came up a point where the estimated cost of this project was something higher than $500,000. Can you get a more accurate estimate of the total project cost?
Thank you, David. The estimated cost of the project is approximately $545,000. And when we discuss the next warrant article, we'll be able to share where that additional $45,000 comes from.
Then I would like to make a motion to amend, because I think this is inaccurate, so that it says an estimated cost of $545,000 with $500,000 of that amount. I can make that in writing.
You have an amendment?
Yes,
You have it written down, David?
I will be in a moment.
Thank you. Just so I understand it, so we're all set here. You would amend warrant Article 4, you would strike where it says 500,000, and in place of the 500,000, you are amending it to read 545,000, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And then adding with 500,000 of that.
500,000 of that coming as stated in here, correct? Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Second. Come down and use the microphone for me, please. The only reason for that is when we get home and look this on TV, nobody can hear what's going on in the crowd, so.
John Collins from Lee, I second that.
Thank you, sir. There is a motion to amend that has been seconded, warrant Article 4, to strike where it says 500,000, to add in its place 545,000, with the amount of 500,000 coming to it as proposed in here. Is there any discussion on the amendment? There being, I'm sorry, yes, David?
David Taylor from Durham. The reason I wanted to make this amendment is I think it's important that when people vote on it, they understand the full cost when they read it at that point, because otherwise it could be construed that the project has to be limited to 500,000. And I think we've had some experience in this district of projects that have hit the budget and run out of money, and I don't want half a cafeteria.
I think we understand. Thank you, sir. Is there anybody that has any questions or any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Wright, 10 Thornton Lane in Lee. I'm just curious, what would, if this money was returned to the taxpayers, how much would that be?
Just so you know, honestly, we're talking about the amendment right now, but if
I realize that.
okay. So is there an answer to?
So I want to make sure I understand your question. How much difference would that make to the taxpayers? So in Durham, it would mean a difference of 29 cents, in Lee, 38 cents, and in Madbury, 33 cents.
Any further questions about the amendment to the warrant article? There being none, we'll vote on the amendment to the warrant article first. And to recap the warrant article amendment, again, to strike the $500,000 figure, change it to $545,000, and with the result, with the $500,000 still coming from the source that it was coming from. Is that correct? All those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your card. All those opposed? Okay, the warrant article is amended. So now we're going back to the warrant article, which now reads, as I just read, but I want to make sure we're clear. This district shall raise and appropriate as a supplemental appropriation in the current fiscal year $1 for the purpose of the construction addition and renovations to add a cafeteria to the Meharmet School. The cost of the addition is estimated to be $545,000, with $500,000 of that amount to come from the expended appropriation of the district's 2013-14 budget as a result of insurance premium holiday from the local government center on the district's health care premiums. Is there any discussion on the warrant article as amended?
Tobin, Farwell, 265 Wadley Falls Road in Lee. Just looking for clarification, the cost of the addition is estimated to be $545,000. If it goes above that, can we set it to a limit of not to exceed $545,000? I'm just, as everybody knows, construction costs overrun. I guess I want some assurance that we're going to live within our means.
I don't know there's anybody here that can assure you to that. If that's an amendment, sir would take it that way. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir. Superintendent.
Unfortunately, we had to divide Article 4 from Article 5, and Article 5 actually provides us some leeway in relation to that number. And the estimate that we have is pretty generous in terms of square foot cost and renovation. So I'm comfortable that between Article 4 and Article 5, we have sufficient funds to do the work.
I guess I'd like to make an amendment then that we change the wording that the cost shall not exceed $545,000.
You need to put that amendment in writing somehow for me, sir.
Thank you.
There's an amendment now to the warrant article 4 as it was amended. There is a new amendment that says, shall the district raise and appropriate the supplemental appropriation in the current fiscal year, $1 for the purpose of constructing an addition and renovations to add a cafeteria to Meharmet School. The cost, the amendment changes now. The next words will say the cost of the addition shall not exceed $545,000. So we're adding the words shall not exceed $545,000 to the warrant article as it was written. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Step up to the microphone, please.
Second, Ann Wright from Lee.
Have that, sir? Okay, we have an amendment. We have a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Yes, sir.
John Parsons, Durham. I think my comments are relevant to both the amendment and the article itself. And perhaps it's become moot. Perhaps it will be moot if the amendment passes, but I'm wondering why we can't get a contracted price for this project so that we don't have to consider dipping in further into the capital reserve fund.
Is that a question for somebody on the board, Mr. Parsons?
I guess it's a question for somebody on the board or for the superintendent. I mean, it's typical when you're building a project to get a contracted price not to exceed X amount. And I'm wondering why this was not presented that way.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. We actually had put out a RFP related to contracted price, and we are doing interviews in the upcoming week. So we actually are going through that process now, but it wasn't possible to get that process going until we had an architect on board and board approval to go forward, and ultimately your support in the communities. So we are engaged in that process right now.
So I take that to mean that the project will end up with a contracted price?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I am Lauren Selig from Durham, and I want to speak against this amendment, because if we end up with a cost of $546,000 or $545,020, I don't want a situation where we have a wall knocked down and a space empty and my children having yet less space to eat. I think that we have to recognize that in construction, while the intention is always to stay within budget, sometimes things happen that are completely unexpected. A pipe bursts, or mold is discovered, or something completely unforeseen, and that we need to recognize the flexibility that if in the event of the board, there's some sort of unexpected overrun, that we have the flexibility to do that. So I oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Hello, Richard Wiegert, Durham, New Hampshire. I'd just like to make a point about this current amendment that if we approve it, it's going to limit our budget, our total budget, which it looks like we have a cushion in other articles, and it's just not going, it's going to short circuit our entire warrant article. So I'm going to also oppose this.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment to the warrant article 4?
Hi, Lindsay Rains, Madbury. I just wanted to say I agree with Lauren about the budget. We know that what she said is true, I think, a lot of us. So we're going to have to keep that in mind, that we're going to shoot for a certain number, but be flexible if it's not exactly that, if it means not being able to take care of something like a burst pipe, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on warrant article 4? There being none, we'll vote on the amendment to warrant article 4 to change the sentence in the warrant article to say that the cost of the addition shall not exceed $545,000. Those who support the amendment to change it to that it shall not, the cost of the addition shall not exceed $545,000, please raise your cards. Those opposed? The amendment to the warrant article does not pass. So we are now back to the warrant article. Is there any further discussion on the warrant article?
Micah Stark from Durham. I just want to applaud the superintendent and the board for putting this proposal forward. This is long overdue, as families who have gone through Mohammed have known for a long time. We currently have 2 children at Mohammed. For the reasons cited, this is critical. If you talk to anyone who works at Mohammed, who has ever worked at Mohammed, this is critical. It's a great, great, smart use of this lawsuit settlement from the LGC, and I encourage people to support this.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I don't know if this counts as discussion or...
This is discussion on warrant Article 4.
Right,
Just identify yourself and what town you live in, please.
I will confine myself to Article 4. I was just simply going to propose that you strike the last sentence. There is no tax impact for this article.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Ruth Sample, Lee.
Thank you. Now, what would you like to say? I'm sorry.
I propose that we strike the final sentence, there is no tax impact for this article. The reason for that is I think that it is not true. If the article passes, then taxes may not go up immediately, but if the article does not pass, then taxes would go down slightly. The money from the local government center is not, it's available money in the sense that it's there, but it has not been apportioned as part of the capital improvement plan. So some people might want to know that this will have a long-term impact on taxes, although that doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. I'm simply saying that it's not true that there is no tax impact for this article.
Thank you. That's not part of the warrant article. That's just the explanation of it. So that's not part of the warrant article itself. So it's not. That's the explanation from the board.
Will that be on the warrant article on the ballot? Will that be on the ballot? No?
The language you're referring to would not be on the ballot. Only the warrant article as written on Article 4 is on the ballot.
So is that true for all of the other articles as well, that the final sentence talking about the tax impact does not appear on the warrant articles themselves? It might be nice to have that offset so that everyone knows that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further explanation on warrant Article 4? Yes.
Ruth made a very good point. If we look at the end, the very end of this sheet, the estimated tax impact for the town of Lee is 64 cents, as opposed to Madbury, which is negative 4 cents, and Durham, which is 16 cents. Now, I think Sue Caswell said that there's a 38-cent cost to this for the town of Lee. So it would certainly save the taxpayers in Lee a significant amount of money if we did not have this built. Obviously, the taxpayers in Madbury would not make a difference because they're in the negatives anyway, and in Durham it's just a moderate increase. So I think that point that Ruth made was a very good one.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on warrant Article 4? There being none, I'm going to call for the vote on warrant Article 4 as amended. And let me read it so that we all know what warrant Article 4 says. Excuse me. Shall the district raise and appropriate as a supplemental appropriation in the current fiscal year $1 for the purpose of constructing an addition and renovations to add a cafeteria to the Meharmet School? The cost of the addition is estimated at, as amended, $545,000, with $500,000 of that amount to come from the unexpected appropriations in the district's 2013-14 budget as a result of an insurance premium holiday from the local government center on the district health insurance premiums. The school board recommends this appropriation. That's the warrant article. All those in favor signify by raising your cards. All those opposed. Thank you. The warrant article passes as amended. The next will be warrant Article 5, Ann Lane.
Warrant Article 5. Shall the district vote to appoint the school board as agents to expend from the Facilities Development Capital Reserve Fund previously established March 9th, 1999? The school board recommends this article. Majority vote required. The explanation for warrant Article 5. Warrant Article 5 gives the school board authority to expend these funds on capital projects. This fund currently has a balance of $98,291. This fund will allow the school board the ability to use these funds, this article, funds for Meharmet Cafeteria or address other capital needs in the district estimated at $3 million. The estimate for the construction of the cafeteria is $545,000. The combined funds of Article 4 and 5 provide the funds estimated to complete the cafeteria. I make a motion to accept Article 5 as written.
There are seconds to warrant Article 5. Dr. Rotner. Warrant Article 5. Shall the district vote to shall the district vote to appoint the school board as agents to expend from the Facilities Development Capital Reserve Fund previously established March 9th, 1999. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on warrant Article 5? We're on, she went too far on one. Warrant Article 5. Too late? No, I'm kidding. Come on.
Lorna Ellis, Durham. I was hoping someone else would ask, who's the authority now and why are we changing it?
Superintendent?
The authority to expend these funds now would have to come from the voters. And obviously, in a project like this, what we're asking is that the voters allow the board to act as their agents and substitute themselves for a collective vote of the citizenry. So by the communities voting to support this article, you're basically shifting the authority to expend it from yourselves as an entity to the school board.
Is there any? Yes, there is.
Katie Ellis, also from Durham. So as a follow-on, that makes it sound like it's just for this project, but this warrant article sounds to me like it's in perpetuity, and I don't understand.
It really was to address one of the questions that we were talking about under warrant Article 4, if the project was more than what we expected. But we also realize as a school board that we have lots of capital needs. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we replaced the roof-mounted heater for the middle school, and that costs someplace in the avenue of about $28,000. So we're asking you all for permission to expend this money now on capital projects that we know we have. So if the Meharmet project actually comes in under budget, we would still use these funds to do other projects that have already been identified by the school board that need to be done.
And so then if we didn't do this, it would just be that every year the projects would have to come up to a vote instead?
Only other way for these funds to be expended is by having a warrant article every year specifically to release them, and you as the communities would release them. So what we're asking is for you to release that authority to the school board so they could make that decision on your behalf.
Further discussion? Warrant Article 5.
Steve Green and Lee. The capital needs of the district estimated at $3 million. So obviously, if we give you guys our permission to spend this money, it's gone immediately. How do we replace that? And as a quick follow-up, currently there's $98,000. Does nobody have the authority to spend that? And is that why it's there? And for the $28,000 that we spent on the heating system, which was desperately needed, obviously, how did we get that?
So every year, you as voters, when you approve the budget, approve a certain amount of money for capital improvements. That's true in this budget as well. This particular account was established in 1999. If we expend all the money in this account, the account already can be replenished by the vote. I shouldn't say all the money. If we spend most of the money in this account, the board, when it develops the next budget, could choose to put more money into this account for the future. So at this point, the board is simply asking to have it released now so we can use it, because it's been there since 1999 and we have capital projects that need to be done.
Thank you. Any further discussion on warrant Article 5? Those in favor of warrant Article 5 as written, please signify by raising your card. Those opposed? Thank you. Warrant Article 6 will be presented by Kenny Rotner.
Good evening. I'm Kenny Rotner, and I'll present warrant Article 6. Shall the district vote to approve a tuition agreement between the Oyster River Cooperative School District and Barrington School District as negotiated by the school board, which provides for an initial term beginning on July 1st, 2015 and ending on June 30th, 2025, and with a term to be extended from year to year, provided that on June 30th, 2021 and thereafter, this contract may be terminated by either party after providing 4 years written prior notice of the date of termination, and further, to authorize the school board to submit the agreement to the State Board of Education for approval pursuant to RSA 194:22, and to authorize the school board to take such other and further acts necessary to give effect to this resolution, including the adoption of minor amendments to the agreement from time to time during its term, without further action by the school district meeting. The school board recommends this article, and majority vote is required. And in way of explanation, this was an agreement that negotiations really took place over an extended period of time. I think many of you are familiar with this scenario that played out. This proposed tuition agreement with Barrington is for 10 years with a mutual goal of a minimum of 125 students tuitioning in from Barrington. The agreement allows for the gradual transition of Barrington students and provides us with guaranteed revenue of 95% of a given year's goal. In the specific years, in the first year, 2015-16, 79 students, and we currently, I believe, have 70. 2016-17, 90 students. 2017-18, 102 students. 2018-19, 113 students. 2019-20, 125 students. After the minimum of 125 is reached, the annual growth rate cannot exceed 20% per year thereafter and will be to a maximum of 200 students. This revenue will be used to maintain and expand programs and to lower tax impact. And I look at this as being an agreement that's a tremendous win for our district and for Barrington. It enables us to really enrich our programs, maintain, add new programs. We'll have an established number of students coming. We won't be overwhelmed with an unexpected flood. The numbers will be quite level, and the revenue is guaranteed. So I would like to make a motion that we accept and approve warrant article number 6.
The motion is made. Is there a second? Or a second, Ann Lane? You heard warrant Article 6. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on warrant Article 6? Yes, sir.
I'm Dean Rubine from Lee. I just wanted to congratulate the school board on negotiating this agreement. A lot of us were worried that a transition with 250 kids coming from Newmarket would be very disruptive, and this looks like it's going to be very smooth. And I think you guys made the right decision, and I want to thank you.
Any further discussion on warrant Article 6? Yes, sir.
David Eddy from Madbury. Just a question relative to minor amendments. What does minor amendments mean? What's a minor versus a major? How do we know what that might entail relative to the contract.
Thank you for that question. Minor amendments would be things that aren't substantive. It may be, for example, that Barrington wants to send 21% in a given year, and it means 2 students, something along those lines. Major amendment would be that if we look at that timeline that Kenny shared, instead of 102 students in 2017-18, they wanted to send 200. So it's about the impact. So minor means small, discretionary, something that doesn't change the intent of the agreement. Major would be something that throws the agreement upside down. So it's basically trying to provide discretion, but not so much that it changes the intent.
Thank you. Any further discussion on warrant Article 6? There being none, those in favor of warrant Article 6 as written signify by raising your card. Those opposed signify by raising your card. The amendment passes as written. Warrant Article 7 will be presented by Al Holland. I would say if there's any amendments to warrant Article 7, please write them down so that we can have them up here. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start off by reading warrant Article 7. Shall the district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant article and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $39,325,985, distributed as follows. Fund 10 equals $38,061,624,000. That's the regular operating budget. Fund 21 equals $603,361. That's expenditures for food service revenues. Fund 22 is $655,000 expenditures for federal and special reserves. Fund 23 equals $6,000 expenditures from pass-through funds. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $37,511,593, the default budget, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the district or by law, or the district may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of the revised operating budget only. The school board recommends this appropriation. Majority vote is required. Okay, that was a lot of numbers to spit out. So we started off by giving Dr. Morse a very difficult task of trying to keep not only our operating budget increase to 2%, but also the operating budget and the teacher's contract lumped together would be a total of no more than 2%. So it required a lot of work on the administrative team to try to live within our goal. To start off with, the major drivers or expenditures in our operating budget this year, one is benefits, which is $178,742,000. And as was just alluded to in the last articles, we do have a significant amount of capital improvements to be addressed. We've been working on it over the last several years. In fact, the high school is kind of a model for energy savings. So in this budget, there's $161,731 in capital improvement. The revenue drivers, the fund balance is $450,000. And you may remember several years ago, 3 years in fact, it was $2.3 million, and the fund balance has been brought down, and the budget's been tighter. Additionally, there has been a reduction in state aids to the town of $21,361. And if you look at it, where that's really coming from is Lee. They've had a reduction of $137,293. And of course, the little asterisk there shows that this is all an estimate from the Department of Education. Budget adjustments. This year was somewhat different in that All new positions that were going to be added to the budget were placed in a separate section of yellow sheets. They were scrutinized by the administrative team, scrutinized by the school board, and also scrutinized by the advisory budget committee. And the real thought was, how does this new position integrate into what we have and improve what we had? So there was a solid plan of how this would add to the school district. Two were put forward. The first one is adding a strings instructor. And it's more than just, yes, it is a position, the strings position, but along with that, the music department would reorganize itself and therefore provide a more continuous or better flow from elementary all the way to the high school. The second actually came out of the negotiated tuition agreement when we went around to other districts, and that was a math tutor position. And when you see the term math tutor, the initial thought is only to help remediate students, and that's not actually what it is. It would provide remediation, yes, but it's also to provide students that are looking to accelerate and perhaps take VLAX an avenue for extra help and success so that they have another pathway to get to where they want to get. So it's all about providing more options to our students. And then the final addition, this year we've been lucky so far, we haven't lost power, but the two elementary schools don't have generators, and as a result, if power is lost, it really puts the food service section at loss, so we've added one generator to one school. Looking at the budget, you'll notice that initially there were $686,945 of increases that were asked for. And as I alluded to with those sheets of new positions, that added another $735,396. So the total asked to be increased in the budget was $1,422,341. Of course, that would not allow us to live within the 2% goal. And so as it was worked through in the fall, the final draft as of January 12th was an increase of $340,473, or 0.9%. And then when you added in the teacher's contract, which was $319,827, that was a 0.8% increase. So the total was a 1.7% increase, which lived within the goal that we'd asked. So what does this 1.7% increase mean to the communities? In Durham, it would mean a 34 cents per thousand increase, which is a 1.78% increase. Lee, it would be an 88 cent per thousand, which is a 4.33% increase. And in Madbury, it'd be a 17 cents per thousand, which would be 0.86%. And as you've probably noticed there's a lot of estimates thrown in there because there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with the state aid. As I talked about in the past slide, we have had a reduction in state aid. The state aid is based upon property value and student enrollment. But, of course, the monkey wrench is that those estimates potentially could change after the March 11th election. And in fact, last year we saw that Lee was supposed to get a 0.98% increase per thousand, but by the time the bills actually arrived, it was a decrease of 0.28. The default budget. In the event that the budget did not pass, we would go to what is the default budget. So our requested budget is $38,061,624. The default budget would be $37,511,593. And in that long warrant, there was a bunch of funds. The fund that's most important is the Fund 10, which is our operating budget. That's the $38 million and the $37 million. The other ones I alluded to, the Fund 21, the Fund 22, those would be added to the default budget if the budget had failed. I think that's it. I would like to, at this time, to make a motion to accept warrant 7 as written.
And there's a second to that? Kenny Rottner. You've heard warrant Article 7 explained. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on warrant Article 7?
Ann Shump, Durham. You mentioned the things that were added, the positions that have been added. Can you speak to the positions that are being taken away?
So there were $203,282 worth of cuts that we made. The first was at the middle school, which is a special ed para. The second was a math long-term sub at the high school. The third was a science long-term sub at the high school. The fourth was at Mohammed, which is a kindergarten teacher, a half kindergarten teacher. The next is a half kindergarten para. Then at the high school, there was a .4 world language position taken away. And at the high school, also a building para. And finally, at the middle school, a 5th grade long-term sub.
Although I'd like to speak to a couple of these positions, I'm going to limit this to the building para at the high school. I understand this is the last building para at the high school. There are no building paras anymore at the middle school. And I do know that this particular building para does a number of things. She is not simply a copy room person. She helps the nurse who do paperwork, which allows her more time with students. Which is really what her job is. The middle school has a dedicated nurses para. The high school has nobody except for this person who helps out once or twice a week. She helps special ed teachers set up their IEP meetings. She helps in the front office in the mornings. She does a number of things. And I feel that if you cut this position, that there's going to be a lot of frustration by the people that are left behind who have to pick up the slack. She also fills, at this point, I understand, is also filling out or making up the orders for supplies and so on. So somebody else will have to do that. As I'm sure everybody up here knows, paras, this particular para is a top of the line para. She gets paid $22,000. She will get paid $22,000, which is what we make in a year, top of the line ones, plus around $10,000 for benefits. So I guess, which people aren't going to like, but they can vote it down if they want. I would like to amend this to add $33,000 for that particular position back into the, I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but I would like to propose that $33,000, which is the approximate salary of this person for next year plus benefits, be added back into the budget, making it, if I added right, because I added it wrong the first time, $358,985, which would be for the Fund 10, would be $38,094,624. So the first number was $36,358,985, and Fund 10 would be $38,094,624.
So the amendment says that you want to add $33,000, approximately the salary of the building para plus benefits of $23,000, and $10,000 in benefits added back into the budget for the number that you stated was $36,358,985, and that would make Fund 10 $38,094,624. Okay.
I do understand that if this is added back in, that the board does not have to give this money for that position, but historically speaking, I understand that usually when the voters ask that it be spent on a particular thing, that the board usually goes along with it. But
That's how it's always been understood since I've been here.
Yeah.
Is there a second? That's a motion. I need a second. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Lindsay Rains, Madbury.
Sorry, say it again.
Lindsay Rains, Madbury.
Yes.
R-A-Y-N-E-S.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a motion to amend the budget by adding approximately $33,000. It's been seconded. Is there discussion on it? Yes, sir.
Todd Allen, principal at the high school. First off, Ann is absolutely right. The woman who's this position refers to is a very capable and talented person. However, just to explain the rationale behind the reduction in this position, there are a number of things that are coming down the pike that will make things more efficient at the high school. District-wide, first of all, we're looking at putting in fact, maybe this is the taxpayers are going to hear about this, but we're moving towards online registration of all our medical forms and so forth. A big part of the support in the nurse's office that this clerical position provides is organizing paperwork that will not need to be organized anymore. We're also moving in a more centralized printing format district-wide, so that rather than having a person staffing a copy room, teachers will be able to send what they need digitally to centralized printers and then just simply go pick it up, so there'll be less of a need for that. Certainly, will it cause some change in the way we function at the high school? Absolutely, but I feel that it's something that we can handle. Again, this is absolutely no commentary on the caliber of the person that this position is about. I think extremely highly of her. Thanks.
Thank you. Further discussion?
David Taylor from Durham. I believe Ann's math is wrong. It should be 39 million, not 36 million.
$39,358,985. Thank you. There's a correction on the math. We'll have the proper number for you.
I work in elementary school.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment, excuse me, to add approximately $33,000 to make the total $39,358,985? Those in favor with the amendment signify by raising your card. Those opposed? I'm going to tell you that the amendment fails. Thank you for your input. Back to Article 7, further discussion.
Ann Wright, 10 Thornton Lane and Lee. I would like to make an amendment to add back in the .4 Spanish position at a cost of $31,517. And I didn't do the math like the woman before me and add it in. And so do I need to do that now?
No, we'll do the math up here. That's good. Do you have it written down someplace? I need something in
I
writing.
have the figure of how much.
You need to write it on a piece of paper. Something a little bigger.
The full amendment down?
No, just give me the.
Just give you the figure? I can do that. Has it been seconded? Can I speak to it?
Just, can you signify what it was for again? I'm sorry. The
Pardon?
purpose of the $31,000.
Oh, it's for to add back in the .4 Spanish teacher at the high school.
.4 Spanish. Okay, thank you. There's a motion to add $31,517 to the bottom line, giving the total, the new total would be $39,357,502. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, John Collins, Lee.
John Collins from Lee seconds that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion to add the $31,517? Certainly.
I would just like to say that Spanish is the second most widely spoken language in the world. It's spoken by 400 million people worldwide. We only offer 2 languages in our high schools, French and Spanish. The least we can do is maintain the 2 languages that we have before adding a third, which I hope we do at some point, or before we expand down to the lower grades, which I also hope we do. But we certainly, prior to doing that, should at least maintain the programs that we have. Now, I've heard that numbers will be dropping. Yeah, we just passed a tuition agreement with Barrington where numbers will slowly be rising. This position has, this .4 position has been held by Wendy Gibson, who is a remarkable teacher, a fantastic teacher, and my son has been fortunate enough to have her 2 times in his 3 years of Spanish at Oyster River High School. She has emailed, she has made phone calls to me. I mean, she is one of those teachers that the school just does not want to lose. I have heard that if we need another Spanish teacher, if we find that the numbers go up next spring with enrollment, that we can add a .4 Spanish teacher back, but that does not guarantee we will get this Spanish teacher back. And I think what makes Oyster River special are the teachers that we have. And when we let go of good teachers, good, solid teachers that have been here, who are part of our community, who make phone calls to parents when students are not doing well, when they need an extra push, then what we're doing is we're chipping away at our reputation. We're chipping away at why people move to Oyster River in the first place. So I say, we know our numbers are going up. Let's keep this .4 position now and not lose an excellent teacher.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to add $31,517?
Todd Allen from the high school again. Just to give you, first of all, again, I think Wendy Gibson is a fantastic teacher. It is not a commentary on that. You may recall that Al spoke of the goals that the board set at the beginning of this process. One was to keep our budget to 2% or less, including collective bargaining agreements and all of those things. In addition to that, we were told to adhere to district staffing guidelines as we looked to add programs. And certainly one of the programs that we're trying to add for next year is a math tutor position. Looking at the current world language department numbers, the average Spanish class size is 16.6, which our district guidelines are 18 to 22 in a class, and our average French classrooms are about 15.3. The reduction of .4, although I know this is extremely mathematical, makes the average Spanish class size 18.2. It is true that with the tuition agreement, the likelihood is the numbers will go up, but they will go up in a very controlled pattern, and probably not enough in the next 2 or 3 years to warrant that level of staffing. So that's the rationale behind it. Again, it is not a judgment on the quality of the program and the caliber of the people that are in those positions. It's a very tough situation to be in. Thanks.
Any further discussion on warrant Article 7? on the amendment, excuse me, to warrant Article 7.
Yeah, John Collins Lee, just two things. One, the board picked a number as a line to try to adhere to. This meeting is all about, we even all got here 2 days later than the regular meeting. This meeting's all about where we can say, no, we'd like to do this instead, where we can, our one chance to provide guidance, or if you will, overrule the board. And the other comment is that number and the 16.4 or 18.2 doesn't even begin to address the personalities and the people involved. And I can't begin to try and recapture what Ann Wright said about the person involved. And if she's gone, and then as the numbers go back up, and in a controlled fashion doesn't do anything, then that person's gone. And what do we get to replace her? So I support this amendment because I'm ignoring the numbers, and I'm calling on the legislative body to give guidance to the board on this matter.
Thank you. Anything further? Yes, sir.
Steve Green, Lee. I'm hoping possibly that Todd can answer a question. If we're discussing decreasing by 0.4, how many are there now? Or 0.4 is what percentage change?
The current World Language Department has 5.4 FTEs. Most of that is Spanish, roughly 3 just slightly over 3 of the positions is Spanish, and then 2.2 are French. So what this would do is reduce the entire staffing of the department from 5.4 to 5.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes. Sure. Dr. Rotner first, and then.
When this topic came up at the board table, there was a very lengthy discussion about it, and a number of us on the board were somewhat concerned about the loss of that 0.4 position. Hearing from the community how important foreign language is, and I think all of us on the board share that. And in the discussion, I think we heard from Principal Allen, and I think we were all convinced that our programming would be maintained. Losing the 0.4, and I'm not going to speak to that individual teacher, but losing that, we were not going to be cutting programming. And I think the conversation at the board table really came to the conclusion that we're at Oyster River, we're really deficient in our foreign language. People have talked about introducing foreign language in earlier grades, talked about introducing maybe a greater breadth of languages offered. And I think our approach here is that we want to take a real comprehensive look. I think that foreign language is something that will be really studied and looked at, and we'll really try to put in place something that really enhances our program rather than trying to keep patches together. And I think we accepted that the program as is will not be hurt with the loss of this 0.4 position.
Thank you. Yes.
Brooke Keeler, Madbury. A math tutor will be great, and I probably need a math tutor right now, so I just have a quick question. If you keep the 0.4 Spanish teacher, who sounds terrific, I hope my kids get her at some point, are you still under 2%? If you add the 31,000, you're still under your number, right, guys, gals?
The answer seems to be yes. Any further discussion on the amendment to warrant Article 7? There being none, those who wish to amend warrant Article 7 by adding $31,517 to a total of $39,357,502, to add, please signify by saying yes with your cards. Those opposed? Put your cards down. We'll do it one more time, and then I'm not sure, we might have to count this, so. Excuse me? You gonna count for me, John? Okay, let's do it one more time. Those in favor of adding the $31,517 signify by saying yes with your cards. Those opposed? I'm going to tell you it's close, but it does not pass. It is clear. Thank you for your time, everybody, on that. Now we'll go back to warrant Article 7. Is there any further discussion on warrant Article 7?
Sure, of course. Hi, Lindsay Rains, again, from Madbury. What I wanted to talk to you about tonight hasn't been mentioned, but I think if you've seen the school board meetings from the 14th and 15th, that was me. Basically, what I want to amend the budget for is to include a school resource officer at Mohammed and Mastway. Right now, we have one that is shared between the middle school and the high school, and we have had that position since 2000, so for going on almost 14 years, and the cost is borne by all three towns. Right now, what concerns me is we are basically counting on a locked glass door to help keep our kids safer. Notice I don't say completely safe, it's safer. We've got basically a buzzer system, and if you have been to either one, well, Mohammed, but if you've been to either one of the schools, what you will notice, you get buzzed in, anybody, you walk right in, and what do you do for the person behind you? You hold the door open. You know. So I'm losing my train of thought. Basically, when I had come before the board previously, we had talked about how there is a lot of support for it at the community level, especially within Madbury. However, it was deemed to be a question of equity. The thought was because Mastway, or rather the Lee Police Department, didn't feel like they needed it at the time. Therefore, to be fair, Mohammed, even though we do have an officer a few days a week at the cost of the town, would not be getting it on the budget. The couple things I want to say to that is, first off, I don't know if you knew, but in Madbury, we have one police officer on at any given time. In Lee, there are two. So basically, we are rolling the dice that they're going to be very close should they be needed for anything at all. I know in Madbury, the farthest away is basically an 8-minute response time, which for me, and I'm sure a lot of parents, is just not good enough. There are also, if you listen to the school board, the previous talks that we've had, there was from both of the principals, and especially from the middle school, saying that it was a very good community building, that it provided guidance, that this person was really very multi-functioning. And I think that is something that is really to be grasped by us. Also, I want to say it's not going to push us over the 2% budget. Basically, it's a cost for Madbury of $18,000 for the year. And Lee is a little bit more because Madbury is part-time, meaning that we don't pay the people benefits, so they will put their lives on their line for no health insurance, no benefits, no retirement whatsoever. Lee costs a little bit more because they get benefits. And I didn't just make up the numbers, I've got the letter that's stamped October 7th that received by the school board, so they're aware. For Lee, that number would be $34,596,000, which makes it a total of $52,596, which, as far as I'm concerned, if we are thinking about all the things that we do for the kids, this is one of the things we have to consider. And I'm thinking of our vision statement right now. I mean, I'm not going to read it to everybody, but it's true, we really consider all aspects of the. So basically, right now, what I am asking is for this to be a vote for the community, because I think that it is something that is too big for just a few people to decide. I think this is something that we're going to have to make on a town-wide and district basis. So for that reason, I am asking that we amend the budget to include $18,000 for a resource officer at Mohammed and $34,596 for an SRO at Mass Way. Also, I wanted to mention, because there was some talk about Lee PD, that when I actually spoke to the chief of police of Lee, he said, of course, whatever the town wants, we will uphold. We support it. Both police departments have said, we are public servants, so whatever the public says, that's what we are going to do. So I move that we put this to the public.
Yeah, thank you. There's an amendment to warrant Article 7. Is there a second to that amendment?
Brian Raines, amendment.
Brad Rings? Brian.
R-A-Y-N-E-S.
R-A-Y-N-E-S. Is there a discussion to the amendment to add $52,596 to the budget for the school resource officer for Mass Way and Mohammed? Any discussion at all? Yes, sir. Oops.
First of all, I understand as a parent the concern of kids that spend quite a bit of time at the schools in making sure that they're safe. And in fact, we have added, when you talk about the middle school and the high school, they were not locked before. In fact, anyone could walk into the school at any time. And so we've added that same locking system to the middle school and the high school to provide more security to them. In terms of budgetarily, it's one of the thresholds we had in those added positions was a clear plan of how something would be integrated into the schools. And in this case, I understand the concern of safety, but it's not clear how the positions would be added in. So there was, in Lee, it's not really clear whether the police wanted it, or so it just wasn't well developed, I guess is the best way to say it. I think that it's premature to add money and then develop the plan afterwards. I think it's a better idea if we really think through of what our elementary security needs are and think through what we're really looking for to add to the school and then come up with the money to do it. So that's my thoughts.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, actually, locked glass door only stops a parent who's trying to pick their kids up after school, pretty much. And also, there is a plan, there has been a plan, it's been stamped, received, so I'm not quite sure why we think there isn't one.
Thank you.
There's a copy of it at the school district. Basically, right now, that's it.
Thank you.
There's a plan.
Any further discussion on this point? Yes, sir.
My name is Dean Rubine. I'm from Lee. I want to speak out against this particular amendment. I did some research, and I didn't find any evidence that SROs actually make students safer. I did find evidence that that student misbehavior becomes criminalized when there's police around. Another comment I would have on the amendment is it doesn't address the middle school, which is only 25% covered by the SRO at this point, so I think in the end it's going to end up costing more money. You know, I guess everybody's thinking about Newtown, which is obviously a terrible, terrible tragedy. But we would be spending lots of money on, you know, a very, very low probability event, and I think if we want to help our students and make them safer and thrive, we need to spend our resources the best way that would happen, and I don't think this is it.
Thank you. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Thank you, on this amendment.
Brian Rains of Madbury. I think that it's interesting that we brought in an SRO officer for the high school and middle school about a year or two after Columbine, which was obviously a tragic event that happened at a high school. I see the fact that we have 1 year later from Newtown, which happened at an elementary school, which was a very affluent town. This wasn't in a ghetto or something, and I think that it's the appropriate action to be able to respond to that. To discuss what an SRO officer is doing, I think there are quite a few people that feel that it is just a security guard, a person walking around with a gun. But there are statistics that state, and unfortunately I don't have them on me at the moment, but that they help lower drug use. Most of these are DARE officers, DARE officers, to be able to introduce that at a very early age. Obviously, the minds of the children at that age are so susceptible to so many things. Introducing an officer not as a scary person that shows up when they're 16 with the blue lights behind them as they sped or went through a stoplight. So I think this is very important.
Thank you. Anybody who hasn't spoken on this issue yet?
John Collins, Lee. It's interesting. I was on the. Have I mentioned I was on the school board? I was on the. I was on the board when the SRO at the high school, when that issue came up, and I didn't connect it with the chronology with Columbine, but the reality of how it came to the board was there was money available. So I'll expose my bias that the federal government, in response to Columbine, threw a bunch of money at the problem, and there was money available for the taking to have school resource officers, and that was the reason, justification, whatever you want to call it, for initially having a school resource officer at the high school. There was money available for, I forget if it was 2 or 3 years, and one of the arguments against it at the time was, after that, if things like that don't go away, then it will be our nickel, and indeed it was. I voted against it then, and I would vote against it now. Obviously, it's a very complex issue. One thing I wonder is and I wonder if there have been studies on this, and especially at the elementary level, the impact on those kids going into a school that is, I know Mast Way from my 3 kids who went through it and others who are there now. And from what I've heard of Meharmet, this welcoming, nurturing environment, to going into a school where they see a police officer as the first thing they see when they arrive at school. I don't know, but the difference, the fundamental change in how they would perceive, how they would think of their school day and how they would relate to school would be, I would fear, would be just dramatically changed. I'm not speaking for or against the amendment, I guess. That's the first concern I have is I understand the safety issue, and the numbers are, you can pick the numbers you want, whether it would enhance safety or not. But my concern is more the impact it would have on the children, changing their school to one with an armed guard at the door as they arrive every day.
Thank you. Next.
William Hall. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Bill.
William Hall, Durham. I wanted to speak to a little bit to the disparity of the amount of time they spend in the high school and the middle school. It has to do almost entirely with the number of cases that warrant the attention of a police officer in the 2 schools. The older they get, the more incidents there is. Very few cases in the elementary school require a police officer that can't be handled by a teacher. Also, in reality, you're more likely to get struck by lightning than you are killed at school. It certainly doesn't make it any easier, but as has been pointed out, at Columbine there was an SRO officer, and these situations are just pretty bad to begin with, but it isn't necessarily going to get saved by having someone with a gun around the elementary school. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
Megan Turnbull from Durham. I actually support personally the amendment. I'm from Newtown, Connecticut, and I grew up there. My family's there. And I've talked to many people back in Newtown, and I do think this would serve our district as a deterrent, but also having students feel comfortable and familiar with the police officer, I think has a lot of benefit, especially as they get older. Many times, students observe things that teachers and parents do not see, and if they feel comfortable approaching an authority and can possibly prevent a tragedy from happening, I think it's worth every penny. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Michael Williams, Durham. I think we need to take a step back here and consider what we're really trying to achieve here. This isn't necessarily about putting a police officer into the schools, as Megan just described. I think that this is really about improving the safety of our schools, and that just simply adding police to the schools is not necessarily the right, perfect way to do that. I think that we need to put that on hold, take a deeper look at really comprehensively what means a safer elementary school and probably safer middle school and high school as well before we just add additional staff, add additional police here. So I am opposed to the motion.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dr. Joe Hannon from Lee. I'm opposed to the amendment, but not against exploring safety options for the school. I know that they've mentioned Newtown and other shootings. The statistical likelihood of this happening is extremely, extremely low. These kids have a better chance of many other things happening to them than something like that. There are some positives of having a resource officer and having someone who's armed at the school to act as a deterrent. I think it's definitely worth exploring, but I do think that we need to take time and discuss this and study it in a rational way before we just throw a position in there. The other thing is having a uniformed officer might seem like a good idea, and it may be, I don't know, but if someone's meaning to do harm, they see someone with a uniform, that's the first person they're going to go after. It may be a deterrent, it's another stumbling block. It's better to have someone who is not holding a sign saying, I'm the guy you've got to get past. So maybe if there is discussion at a future date, having non-uniformed officer or somebody in that sense would make some sense. So I think we should step back, definitely discuss it, but I think we should relax. This is not, I don't think we have a major drug problem at Mastware, Mahomet. Aside from putting a larger gun-free zone sign up, I don't know what else we could do. That doesn't seem to be working. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet?
Hi, I'm Dee Dunbar-Hambucken from Lee. And, personally, I think that it would be unfortunate to turn elementary schools into something where we need armed guards. I think that it's a little disrespectful to think that kids don't feel comfortable enough with their elementary teachers to go and discuss issues with them. And I think that when it comes to talking about drugs and violence, we need to look at our roles as parents. I mean, that needs to start early in the home. I don't think that it's the job of the schools to necessarily do this on a daily basis. That doesn't mean that we can't have officers come in from time to time to do certain assemblies or to discuss certain safety issues, but I don't think it's necessary in the school.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Any further discussion? One more time? Promise? Okay.
Very short. Actually, I wanted to say I'm glad we're all talking about it. I don't think we've talked about it as a community, and I think it needs to be talked about. So one of the big reasons that I am moving to put this on is because we can have it decided as towns, not just the few of us who managed to make it out here on a Friday night, but it'll give people, it's in March, it'll give people a chance to do their study, to talk, to do what they need, and to make a decision at the vote, at the ballot, with all of us.
Thank you. All those in favor of adding $52,596 to the bottom line to make a total of $39,378,581 for school resource officers, those in favor of adding, please signify by raising your card. Those opposed, the amendment fails. Thank you for your time. Back to warrant Article 7. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Richard Weaker, Durham, New Hampshire. I'd like to make a motion to add $75,000 line item to the budget for the 2014-2015 school year for a pilot full-day kindergarten program consisting of 2 classrooms utilizing the empty classrooms at Mastway Elementary. Specifics of the program will be developed by the ORCSD administration prior to the start of the 2014-2015 school year.
Yes, sir.
Richard, W-I-E-C-H-E-R-T. And
from Lee, did you say?
Durham.
Durham, I'm sorry. You make this motion?
Yes, I do.
There's a motion on the floor to add $75,000 to the school budget for a pilot full-day kindergarten program. Is there a second to that motion? Ann Lee? It's a second to the motion. Any discussion?
I'd like to read a few words that I've been collated from a few community members that we share common interest. Good evening. The school board has put together a thoughtful and purposeful budget this year. However, we believe that one thing was left out that is invaluable to our district, especially in the 2014-2015 school year. At Mastway, there are 2 empty classrooms. One is empty all day and currently being utilized as a math lab. The second is empty for half the day, utilized only in the morning for kindergarten. Last summer, the subject of full-day kindergarten was raised to utilize those empty classrooms. However, due to timing of the other issues, it fell to the wayside. The elementary school enrollment then took precedence, as it should have. However, we do not see a full-day kindergarten program or even a pilot program in this year's budget. In fact, half-day kindergarten position at Mohammed is being eliminated. We would like to request the members of this community that are present and the members of the board to entertain this notion as an alternative. We revisit the pilot program for kindergarten now in March so that the administration and the staff has the time to plan for September. They can make educated, timely, and calculated decisions on how to best fit the program in, who it would benefit, and how the children would be selected. The kindergarten position at Mohammed would be needed as well. While kindergarten may not be on the minds of many of you, it is on ours. From the perspective of the parent that initiated this request, Krista Butts, and I'm quoting now, "My 3rd child is starting kindergarten in the fall. While I did not feel my older 2 children needed full-day kindergarten, my perspective has changed completely for my 3rd child. And let me take a moment to explain why. The 2014-2015 school year will bring the start of the Common Core standards. My child has an IEP. He is currently in district at the PEP program, where he attends school here in this building for 3 hours a day. He has an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a teacher, and a couple of aides in his classroom for the entire day. When he goes to kindergarten, he will have a teacher and an aide. His class size will likely be doubled. His speech therapist will either have to come into the classroom to meet his and other IEPs or pull him out of the class to give him his speech therapy. I recently completed his IEP for this year. By my calculations, I have confirmed that what I have been saying to the board repeatedly for the past 2 years. My child will receive approximately less than 1 hour of direct kindergarten instruction per day once his IEP, snacks, specials, etc. are taken into consideration. You tell me, when my child is entering behind the 8 ball because of his IEP and other children who are attending full-day kindergarten and who are attending full-day kindergarten are getting 5 times as much kindergarten instruction as he is, where do you think he's going to fall on the STAR assessment when he gets to kindergarten? Let me help. The bottom. I want my children and all of the children of this district to have the opportunity to get a better education than that. We cannot forget we cannot forget our 5- and 6-year-olds. They are the future of this district, and we owe it to them to start this kindergarten program while we have available resources if it will make the difference. Ending quote. And to summarize, or to finalize, one might ask if the 40 to 50 children that are in the full-day kindergarten will have an advantage over the others when they get to the first grade. Well, maybe. Isn't that what we want to find out? If they do, that will be 50 less children that will need services or tutoring in the first grade, which will free up others who need it. It'll be up to the administration and the staff to decide what this program will look like. It could be purely a readiness program, purely a lottery program, or a little bit of both, but it needs to happen, and it needs to happen this year so that our kids are not behind. We do not want our kids to start behind in the first year of the school because we missed a huge opportunity to make education better. Do not take our word for it. We are sure that there are kindergarten and PEP teachers here that would speak to the merits of the program. Please add a full-day kindergarten pilot program to this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on an amendment to Article 7 to add $75,000 for kindergarten?
I'm Jean Parsons from Durham, and I was determined not to talk tonight because I always end up down here. But the comments I just heard about special education made my ears burn. I'm a special education administrator in a neighboring district, and if I'm neutral on this article, I see benefits of full-time kindergarten, and I also know that children have done well with half-time kindergarten. Do not vote for this article because a child on an IEP is being advertised as not getting enough services, because an IEP, by definition, is a supplementary, additional programming that's guaranteed by its definition to provide benefit for a child who needs extra support. It's not something that leaves a child short-handed. It's not something that pulls him out. It's something that supplements and enriches and provides guaranteed benefit. So if you're going to vote on it, please don't vote for that reason. And I happen to know Oyster River has a dynamite special ed department. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment?
Sarah Farwell, Lee, New Hampshire. I spoke about this last year, and I guess even though the timing's a little different, my message is still the same. I'm a very strong proponent of full-day kindergarten. In fact, I was shocked when I moved here 13 plus years ago to find out we did not have full-day kindergarten. But what I find is not okay about this as a pilot program is that it is not available for every single Oyster River child that wants it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment to Article 7? Yes, sir.
Just to speak to that point, this is Richard Weaker, Durham again. We had a whole discussion about how we could solve that problem, and it was voted down by the community. So, but this gives an opportunity to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that full-day K is beneficial and warranted in this community. Thanks.
Thank you. You've heard the discussion on the amendment to Article 7 to add $75,000 for a pilot full-day kindergarten program. Yes, sir.
Steve Green, Lee. I think that this is, I'll be voting against this. I think it's sort of a backdoor way. It seems to be sort of a backdoor way to sneak in a pilot program or the like without the taxpayers really understanding that that full-day kindergarten is part of this new budget. I would think that the school board, I haven't got the impression that the school board has voted for full-day kindergarten, and I don't think this is a good idea.
Thank you. Okay, those of you who are in favor of adding $75,000 to the bottom line to make the bottom line $39,400,985, please signify by raising your card. Those opposed, the amendment fails. Back to warrant Article 7. Is there any further discussion? I'm going to talk real quick. There being that, no.
You don't have a chance. Actually, my excuse is to ask, there was in the presentation, there was a generator added for one school. I'm assuming it was one of the elementary schools. I'm further assuming which elementary school. And one of the justifications was if the power went out, it'd be needed for lunch. I'd like a little explanation of if there's already a way to handle that at the other elementary school, or if there was a decision that it was more important to feed the students at one elementary school or the other. And now I would call upon the moderator to try and rule me out of order, because my real reason to come up here was to just say that I loved Shirley Thompson, and I'm really going to miss her.
If I could speak, I'd rule you out of order. Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's been a long day, as her funeral was today. So,
Thank you, John, for the sentiment and the question. The basic plan is to put one generator at one elementary school in this budget, and then follow up in the next budget and put the second generator at the second elementary school. And the reason behind it really is twofold. One, there's nothing that drives me more crazy as a superintendent than when we lose power at the elementary schools and people all want, well, I shouldn't say, we get enough pushback that we should be sending the kids home on a day that the school's lost power. The logic escapes me, because when the school loses power, so has the neighborhood. And so the logic of sending students home to homes where their parents are likely working, so you draw them from work, and then to try to dismiss them into homes without power just doesn't make any sense. So it's really a 2-year goal of bringing generators into the elementary schools so that we can say, regardless of what's happening with the public utilities, school will go on, and the parents in the community will know that the schools are safe, warm, boilers are working, food is being serviced, not just, what we can do with peanut butter and jelly, but service hot lunch, so that by the time the parents come home, they know the children have been not just educated, but well cared for. The particular problem, or the priority problem for me, is the Massway School. We've had a lot of brownouts at that school where we've lost heat, or we've lost the pumps, or we've lost a wing, and the basic reason is that the system is very susceptible to going down. And as a superintendent, I recommended to the school board that we go this course so that we would have our children in the school and we wouldn't have to be worrying about them or sending them home. We could keep them there all day and parents would know they were in a safe place, not just being educated, but kept warm and fed. So the explanation probably needed to be a little richer.
Thank you.
Operating the Oyster River School District is about $200,000 a day, and to not lose one day makes the generator a bargain.
Any further discussion on warrant Article 7? Those in favor of warrant Article 7 as written for a total of $39,325,985 signify by raising your cards. Those opposed, if I could just read the voting times, I'll entertain a motion to dismiss. The voting times, Town of Durham, Oyster River High School, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., March 11, 2014. Town of Lee, March 11, 2014. Lee Safety Complex, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., March 11, 2014. Town of Madbury, Madbury Town Hall, 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Is there a motion? Mr. Parsons.
John Parsons, Durham. Thank you all. I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Kitty?
I'd like to second, but may I make one comment?
Yes, you may.
I've worked here at the deliberative sessions for the last 3 or 4 years now, and I have to say that this has been the least contentious meeting I've ever seen. And I think that everybody, no matter what their point of view was, did a very good job speaking to their issues, and everybody was very respectful, and I thank you so much.
I couldn't agree more. We are adjourned. Thank you.